Well, a very warm welcome to this Digital City event, our roundtable focusing on that really critical question. Is 2021 the year to go global? My name is Richard Jeffrey. I'm the National Director of GC Business at the Growth Company. We're a social enterprise. We dedicated to enabling growth, creating jobs, improving lives. And we work with a whole range of private and public partners to help companies achieve their full potential. We help deliver part of the Growth Hub network, and we also deliver the Global Scale-Up program, of which we have some participants here today. And with digitisation really driving some huge changes that we've experienced over the past years with the pandemic, we've seen so many firms who've really grabbed some opportunities, who've pivoted and changed and really grabbed hold of the international opportunities that are out there. And we've got a panel that we've brought together here today, a really great panel, who are going to really delve under some of the challenges that businesses face, some of the opportunities, and some of the things that people have to do to really capture the opportunities that are out there and to really understand what you've got to do differently in this pandemic and hopefully post-pandemic environment that we're moving into. So I'm just going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves. If they could give you a name, say where you're from and where you are and what your role is in internationalisation. So first of all, I'm going to come to Christos Kotis, the GM Export Plan Lead at the Department of International Trade. So Christos, if you could just say a little bit about yourself first, that'd be great.
Thank you, Richard. Hello, my name is Christos Kotis. I'm part of the DIT Northwest team, delivering our projects through the Growth Company. And we're working on updating our export plan as part of the government's levelling up agenda, working closely with the Greater Manchester Combined Authority and the LEP.
That's great. The next person we've got with us today is Cameron Lee, the CEO of Total Processing. So if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Total Processing.
Thanks, Richard. So I'm Cam Lee, one of the directors and shareholders at Total Processing. We are a payments business who essentially help facilitate online transactions. We've been very fortunate over the last 2 years to grow from a handful of people to just over 70, and throughout that grow into markets in Germany, Dubai and Malta.
That's brilliant. We've also got with us Val Gore, the head of the Mayor's International Business Programme, delivered by London and Partners. So if you could just introduce yourself and say a little bit about what your programme does.
Thanks, Richard, and it's great to be here. My name's Val. I head up the Mayor's International Business Programme, which is a technology scale-up programme to support London-based high-growth tech firms. I'm also part of a wide organisation called London and Partners, which is London's international trade, investment and promotion agency, mandated and funded by the Mayor of London.
Very much looking forward to hearing what you've got to share with us today. And finally, Inga, the Global Partnerships Manager at the Next Web. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Inga, I work for the Next Web. We're headquartered in Amsterdam. We got acquired in 2019 by the Financial Times. TNW is a tech events and media company hosting multiple events throughout the year. And we have the nextweb.com, our media outlet. And my role specifically is also to partner with governments where we help them to attract scale-ups to their region. And we help our own scale-ups also to scale internationally.
That's great. Well, a warm welcome to all of you to today's panel. For Christoph, I'm going to come to you first. We're based here in Greater Manchester, or in Manchester here today, and really keen just to understand what's Manchester putting in place to ensure it becomes that global top 20 city. Well, what's it putting in place to ensure that it accelerates out of the pandemic to really achieve its full potential? If you could touch on some of the things that the city's doing right now.
Thanks, Richard. Obviously, there's an agency called Midas, the Growth Company's inward investment agency, who's doing an amazing job in promoting Greater Manchester's strengths or USPs, as you like, as their destination to invest, work, live and visit. My area of expertise is global trade and export. So we have all Greater Manchester businesses have access to our network of 60 international ITAs, or international team advisors. We have sector specialists, region-based resources who can offer free, impartial advice and support exporters on their journey. So what we do as a region is we have in place some very successful programs, such as the Export Academy for new and small, medium-sized exporters. We have the Global Scale-Up Program, which we're very proud of, developed in partnership with high-profile international companies such as Santander, BWF, KPMG, Manchester Airport. And this is ideal for fast-growing businesses to export in specific global markets. So we are supporting businesses to deliver their international trade strategy, also with a number of funding programs. ESIF comes to mind, the European Structural and Investment Fund, and that all businesses in Greater Manchester can apply for. So there's plenty of support out there. We just need to be a bit more confident and reach out to all these amazing resources at our disposal and grab the opportunities for global trade.
Christos, just to address that point, what is Greater Manchester doing to really ensure that it's proactively reaching out to ensure that everybody is aware of those opportunities?
We're putting together, so Greater Manchester has an internationalization strategy. There was a 2017 to 2020 publication. The combined authority and the lab brought out a 12 months sort of bridging strategy to take us through the past 12 to 18 months, which, as we know, changed everything. And as part of that, we're putting together a new updated export plan outlining the long-term ambition we have to be a top 20 global city by 2035. So this involves measuring our KPIs against how attractive we are to global audiences to come and invest, visit, study over here, increase our exports, securing direct routes, developing new partnerships overseas, and a number of other initiatives.
Okay, that's great, and clearly a lot of support there here in Greater Manchester. Pulling it out to a global perspective, Inga, really keen to hear a little bit more about the Next Web, and you've got that really advantageous position of being able to look across a whole range of digital, creative and tech ecosystems. So what are you seeing at the moment? What are those areas that are seeing real growth? What's driving that? And what's different now to when we all gathered together a year ago? What new opportunities have emerged in that year?
So it's a very interesting development, I would say. So we are obviously our core business is in events and media, but we're also doing innovation programs for corporates and governments. And where we see that a year ago, a lot of cities wanted to put their soft landing in place and attract foreign skill-ups. That has been put on hold, obviously, for a while. But also, since the last couple of months, we see now that these cities and regions actually speeding up because they know the world is opening up again. And the most important development there is that the MENA region is super active, and that we see that Europe is a bit lacking behind. There's less budget now, and the MENA region is where where the funding is, where the investors are, and where everything is speeding up the process. And TNW plays a role in helping cities and regions to scout scale-ups from all over the world in a certain industry or certain technology, and help them to bring them to another region where they want to scale to. And this is a very interesting development that we see that the MENA region is very active there. And a lot of those soft landing programs, right? You can do a lot online. That's what we have seen. But also, if you want to scale to another city or region, you have to really set foot on the ground and see if it's going to work for your company. So even though we're more digital than ever, we still see that it will not replace in person.
And you mentioned Europe lagging behind a bit there. What do you think Europe needs to do to catch up and get back on that front foot?
Funding. It's all about funding. I think if you see how the amount of funding that goes into an ecosystem in the US or in China, we're such a small percentage. And I mean, I'm from the Netherlands. We don't even play a role there. And if you see now how fast it goes in the MENA region, I think it's going to be a big competitor for Europe. And yeah, I think there's a big role for maybe the European Union to play, but also the bigger players here in Europe to get more funding available for the companies.
And you talk about that growth. What would your recommendation be to businesses who are looking right now at global opportunities? What do they need to do to tap into that market and to tap into some of the opportunities that are presented there?
Difficult to say. I mean, it really depends. Like, right, what is the region you wanna go to, and where's your business? Where's either the B2B market, right? Where are your clients? Where's the funding? I would definitely recommend all companies that have put all their activities on hold to start now, because we see also here that the quarter 3 and 4, that's where the world will open up again. And I think just be ready, right, for to step on that plane and go there. But you can do a lot of research up front and in a digital way. And a lot of the soft landing programs, they offer all the basic needs and information online. So yeah, I would say just make sure you're ready to step into that plane and really invest in where you want to go to.
And talking about people who are ready to step in and have stepped up and have entered it, Cameron, I'm going to bring you in. So total processing, what a year you've had, an incredible journey. And are you now where you thought you were going to be 12 months ago? What's been different for you to what you were expecting? And where is it that you're particularly seeing that acceleration of growth?
Yeah, so I guess looking back a year, when we first saw COVID, we were pretty anxious. You know, it was very uncertain. But what we saw was brick and mortar retailers almost overnight closing, and you saw this massive shift from consumers and businesses to online. And you know, we're very fortunate that we're on the side of the e-commerce facilitators. So over the last year, we saw tremendous growth in our existing customer base of them processing and transacting more. But in terms of generating newer business, we were able to sort of capture legacy players who hadn't really thought about their online proposition, and those guys were really investing in technology. And you know, we saw that globally as well. So we managed to open up offices in Germany and Dubai over the last year as well.
Cameron, can you just tell us a little bit about what it is that your company actually does? That'd be great.
Sure. So we essentially facilitate online transactions. So when a consumer goes to buy something online, they'll enter their 16-digit card number, expiry date, and CCV. We ratify that information and then essentially help the movement of money from that consumer's bank account to the businesses. And
you know, we just heard there from Inga the importance of getting on a plane and being in front and facing someone. You've not been able to do that for the last 12 months. So how have you gone about opening up new opportunities and finding those new connections, and have you made that real and lead to actual action? We all go on a lot of seminars, a lot of meetings, but actually doing it so you get a business in an international market, perhaps with someone you haven't met before. How have you gone about doing it? How have you made that work for you?
Yeah, so we took the approach that we've got to do as much market research as possible before entering a region, and that's where the growth company comes in. So they sort of assisted us with doing our market research and ratifying our understanding of market dynamics. And then we were actually quite bullish, and we went and actually traveled to Dubai, which was one of our establishments we set up, and got boots on the ground. So in that scenario, we were able to travel during COVID because the MENA region was more open than Western Europe and the US. The other markets, so Germany as an example, everything was done virtually. So interviewing people, speaking to new clients, it was all done over Zoom. But I think that's very much a European dynamic where sort of the European world is used to transacting now over Zoom calls.
Do you see that sticking with us? Do you see that trend continuing, or do you think we'll revert back to where we were before? Quite interested to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think we'll probably see a hybrid. I think initial meetings will probably be taken over Zoom because it's easier. And then the real business where you're agreeing a deal will probably still be done face to face. Me personally, I like doing business in front of people. I think you really get that trust that you can't really replicate over Zoom. But in terms of initial fielding and introductory calls, I think Zoom is now the norm, and those face-to-face meetings would be reserved for probably the later stages of any deals that are done.
That's great, thank you for that. And I'm going to bring Val in now. So tell us a little bit about the Mayor of London's International Business Programme and your plans for 2021. Presuming your plans for 2020 were a little bit altered. So really keen to kind of get your take on that. And I know that there are a lot of opportunities kind of out there, but have you shifted how you're supporting businesses and what new opportunities have you seen emerging?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Well, I think it's been a year, right, today, since we went into lockdown, the 23rd of March. And like most folks on this call, I suspect we instantly switched to digital. Our currency is running events, sessions, workshops, meetups, and of course, everything we did was in person. Overnight, we switched to using online tools, primarily Zoom, to continue delivering what we're delivering, and we learned a huge amount. I think the last time I counted, we've run 125 workshops and roundtables and events and meetups since March, including cohort launches. And in addition to that, we've run 10 virtual trade missions, which is very new territory for us. So it was interesting listening to Cameron talking about Dubai and the Middle East and Germany. We continue to run virtual trade missions to those regions. And we've run 10, and we embarked on that with slight trepidation because we weren't really sure how it would fare and be delivered and land. But the reason why we delivered 10 is because we were very, very well received. I guess there was this commonality in that we're all in the same boat together, having to do these things virtually and digital. And plus, in addition to that, there was huge appetite and continues to be from corporate side to learn more and to continue to stay engaged with startups and scale-ups. So we continue to do that, and we continue to do it in the foreseeable. I agree with Cameron. There will be a blended kind of approach to us coming out, but still delivering face-to-face group activities using Zoom before we follow up in person.
And if you were to give a bit of advice to someone who's coming on one of your virtual missions and getting ready to it, what would that be? Who are the people who really make the most of that and are able to land their message, their pitch, and get what it is that they want to get out of it?
I think the pitching is an interesting one. It's something that we really focus on, Richard, actually, particularly during what we call the pre-mission briefing. Pitching, and which is not necessarily pitching per se to a VC. It's getting your narrative correct and right and crystallized for the market and or the vertical you're looking to target. So we bring in a lot of mentors and our corporate partners to help companies to get that story correct. And to ensure that you use them, you kind of exploit and leverage that opportunity that you get in front of an investor or a corporate potential buyer, and then do your research. Lots of research. There's a huge amount of information out there through organizations like ours and others on this call, but also online. So leverage that whilst you're still working from home.
That's great. Thank you for that. And Inga, just to come to you, obviously it's not just smaller businesses that have got to adapt. Some larger businesses have really had to shift how they do business, how they're tapping into new markets. And for yourselves, very much about bringing people together. Have you adapted during this, you as a business? And what have you seen that's really worked? And how have you enabled others to really enter some of those opportunities on a global stage?
Yeah, well, obviously, as an events company, it has been a very challenging year for us last year. But luckily, we have also a media department, so we were able to bring our events quite fast online. We did that for 1 year. We did 5 couch conferences and our full flagship event of 2 days online. A lot of learnings, a lot of feedback. And what does work, obviously, is content. You can stream it to your global audience. It's accessible for everyone. It really works, but it's more like the business model behind it is more video on demand. And it's not really the events that we know, right, where we do business, because we see that a virtual business floor, meetings, investor pitching, it's all elements that we will not bring online back this year at TNW. We will do a a hybrid event, and everything that didn't work online, we will do offline, in person in Amsterdam.
I've got to ask you a little bit more about what didn't
fingers
work.
crossed.
I've got to ask you a little bit more about what didn't work as well. I'm sure people will be interested in some of that.
Yeah, so we got a feedback from all our partners saying that if you have a virtual booth, like normally you have like the serendipity, right, of people passing by and all the conversations, and online it's super difficult to keep the attention from your visitors in your booth, and you have one person sitting behind the laptop maybe for a couple of hours. It's super difficult to have an appealing program. The same counts for a pitching session, or even like content. If the content is not spot on within 1 or 2 minutes, people click away. They go out of the session, and it's difficult to keep your attention there. And I think for the same counts also for meetings, and we see that there's a big fatigue of being behind the screen. And this was the majority of the feedback that we got, and that doesn't really work. So we will not bring that back online. But however, it works for content, for speakers, for a keynote or a panel. For a short time frame, right? Like 20 minutes. But yeah, it was a really challenging year for us, and we're happy we're going to come back hybrid this year.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a whole new journey for everybody, isn't it? The hybrid, and finding out what works and what doesn't work in that. So,
yeah,
but,
definitely.
That's great. And looking at those people who've done kind of really well, I want to bring in Val here and get your take on, of those businesses who've really grasped it, what's been their characteristics? What is it that's underpinned their success, of people who've really made the most of this environment that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things there actually, Richard, but I think the fundamentals still exist, right? You've still got to do you've still got to pin down your product market fit. Again, listening to Total Processing at Cameron, they've done a huge amount of work, from the sounds of it, to ensure they've got that fit correct for the verticals and the markets they're entering. I think there's clearly some commonality. I mean, I think Inga mentioned funding. I mean, you can't move and you can't do anything if you if you're not well funded, not least because of the year we've been through. So ensuring you've got the right runway. So it's no surprise to all of us that those organizations that have done very well are the ones that have raised significantly to be able to create those runways to allow them to not only continue what they're doing, but also pivot and re-strategize on some of the kind of plans they had pre-pandemic. And then again, the fundamentals, manned by the right skill set, expertise, just good advice, governance, and good connections globally.
What about prioritizing within that? Because one of the the great opportunities is, you can get on those calls easier. You don't have to get on the plane. You can get there quicker. But in that opens up a much broader range of opportunities. So how do you help companies really prioritize and pin it down to get to those priority markets?
Again, I guess you just got to ensure that you've got the priority is important. I mean, we talk about target markets, MIBP. I'm often feel like it's a red flag when a company approaches us and says they've got 10 target markets. I mean, that's nigh impossible, right? So that's clearly a company that has a little bit more work to be done in terms of understanding where their market lies and where they need to attack. So there's a huge amount of work to be done there. I think, and of course, when you're in a certain market, like payments, for example, that's global. And of course, you can't go global instantly. You've got to ensure that you're focused and precise. So I think there's a huge amount of work to be done. That's why I think that having the right people in advisors and governors and a board of advisors is crucial, including your VCs.
Absolutely. And bringing it back here to Greater Manchester perspective, where we're hosting today's session, Christos, I'd like to ask you, how's Greater Manchester prioritising from this new wealth of opportunities that are emerging? How's this city really making sure it's prioritising what it's focusing on?
Well, our international strategy has 5 core priorities. And although we've been through a lot in the past 12, 18 months, our priorities remain the same. So we're talking trade, we're talking investment, research and innovation, visitor economy, and that's both tourism, but also business visitors, and international students. These are the 5 core priorities. What we do is we have 3 enablers in order to meet our objectives on those 5 priorities. So as our previous panelists mentioned before, it's all about connectivity, digital and physical. It's about the global reputation and perception of the city region. And then we have the city region diplomacy, Richard, which is a very powerful concept, which I can expand a bit on if you want me to. But these are the
well, just tell me why it's powerful. What is it that you've seen? What is it that you've been able to put in place that may be a bit of relevance to Cameron and others, and we can bring them in a minute. But so I'm interested to pick up on what you mean by powerful. So.
It's very powerful because when we speak to businesses, especially SMEs, which is the lifeblood of our economy, they all say to us, we all remember a British Prime Minister going abroad and taking with them a cohort or a group of businesses, and they all tend to be PLCs, blue chip companies. So how does that actually support us on the ground who either want to expand into a new market or you want to break into a new global region. And this is where what we refer to as city region diplomacy is this enabler where it's actually a simple concept. We just leverage our strengths and connections to drive trade, investment, innovation, people exchange. A couple of good examples I can give you is the Big Booster partnership, which was between Greater Manchester and Lyon in France, following a global scale-up partnership with Midas. We've made incredible progress. Just this week, we had our mayor, Andy Burnham, speaking to the energy minister of the North Rhine-Westphalia region in Germany. We have the city regions of Barcelona in Spain, Osaka in Japan, Rotterdam in the Netherlands. This is just to name but a few. So, and this isn't just the established regions, Richard. It's also growth opportunities in a wide range of territories. So we are working on an idea of linking Boston, especially from a health innovation point of view, with Greater Manchester. Melbourne in Australia for fintech. This is just a couple of examples. So
it's really helpful to hear that, and I'm keen to get to Cameron's take on that. So we've got the city-to-city diplomacy, some of these programs. You're a very smart company, Cameron. Why have you needed this? What's helped you? What opportunities have opened up for you that otherwise might not have been there?
Sure. So I guess the other panelists have mentioned, but funding plays a massive part in internationalizing. And we were very fortunate last year to raise £5 million in CBILS funding from Boost & Co. But in order to get that funding, we had to have a credible business plan and really understand the market dynamics of the UAE as an example. So the Global Scale-Up Programme allowed us to really understand how the market operates, speak to some customers in advance of actually raising funds, speak to the right banking partners in order to develop out the business plan. And going into a market that's completely alien to us, we really needed that support and introduction network that the Scale-Up Programme offered.
And I think that's a similar thing in London, isn't it? Where we've got London and Partners with the Scale-Up Programme there, really looking there at bringing in a range of private partners. So how does that work? How is it that we've got private partners working alongside public? How do we get that to integrate and really work well? So interested in hearing from you, Val, about how you've got that private partnership to really work and for the benefit of, are they not just selling their services into businesses when they're engaging with them?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a good question. I mean, partners, I mean, the clue's in their name, right? The partnership has been part of what we do from our inception, which, by the way, is 10 years in April. So we're 10 years old. On the Scale-Up Programme, let's just start on the program that I run. We've got 5 partners, including Microsoft, 2 legal firms, Globalization Partners, and Cyclum. They're very much integrated into all of the activities we do. So we're kind of partner first in terms of co-creation of events, workshops, really leveraging their expertise across their teams, both domestically and internationally, to ensure that we can maximize all of that great resource and advice and activities. And then, of course, we've got a whole host of other programs, including our inward investment team, which attracts investment into London, similar to what Midas does in Manchester, where we've got 50 partners across a whole host of disciplines. Again, similar type of ethos. Yes, they're looking to generate leads, but that's not the starting point. The starting point is thought leadership, advice, pro bono often, to provide that free content and advice and steer before any kind of commercials landed.
And has that felt relevant to you, Cameron, when you've been engaging with these businesses and these partners? Has that felt real, and have you gained the benefit from that?
Yeah, and it's that pro bono work that's really valuable. The idea is with the private and public partnerships, they'll give you pro bono advice, but the benefits for the private sector comes later on. As we expand into the region, win more clients, those private sector relationships come into fruition. So we're actively working with some of those private partners now on engagements, but they wouldn't be possible without the pro bono work up front in terms of helping us get set up in the regions.
Just bringing it to look at some of the longer term trends that we're seeing at the minute. So Inga, what have you seen, looking at all those companies you're working with, all those ecosystems that you work with? How are you seeing the changes in the way people work, and how can businesses really capitalize on that change?
Oh, well, it's really different from across the world, right? But we mainly work with European ecosystems. We see a lot of what I really like to see is like the partnerships that already was mentioned in this panel, that cities work together and they exchange, or they have the relationships, the city to city relationship, they exchange knowledge, company, but they also exchange ideas on how to set up their programs. I think also that's very interesting to see how tier 1 or tier 2 cities benefit from that. I think also the companies will benefit from it, because Europe is relatively, like the countries are relatively a small market. So most of the companies that enter Europe, they go via one country, but they want to capture the whole continent, I would say. So yeah, that's interesting to see. And I think because everything goes digital now, it's easier to get this ecosystem connected. And for example, have Eastern Europe learn more from Western Europe, and be on a daily basis connected there.
And Cameron, have you seen that have a similar impact on the fintech sector? And have you seen that kind of changing consumer behaviour? And what do you see sticking? What do you see changing in the longer term for the sectors you're engaging with?
Absolutely. So in our sector, consumers have now shifted entirely to purchasing things online. So anything from groceries through to all of their clothing, everything's purchased via e-commerce sites. I personally see that staying for the long term. A lot of brick and mortar retail businesses now have shifted their entire focus to growing their e-commerce proposition rather than expanding their brick and mortar retail stores. So I think we're on the right end of that market shift, but it's only prevailing. The most profitable companies in the world are the likes of Amazon, who sell entirely online, and that's where we see the value being.
That's great. So one final question for you, Val, before we move on, and I'm going to ask you each one final point about what advice you'd give. But Val, we've seen a real shift in understanding of diversity and some of the changing landscape. Have you seen that impacting on businesses who are looking to go global, and how are you seeing companies adapt to some of those shifts that we've seen this year?
Yeah, we've seen a huge shift in the discussions, in the narrative. I mean, Black Lives Matter, for all of us, I guess, has triggered so many discussions and head scratching and hand wringing, right? So we've seen a huge shift in discussions and narratives amongst our members, who have been introspective and understanding their own staff base, and trying to see if there is a disalignment. Often there is, between their teams and founders and investors in comparison to their customer base and their partner base, right? So there's a lot of discussions as to how to address that. we here at London Partners, and I guess this is not new for many scale-up programs, we've been talking about this and trying to contribute in our own small way to this kind of these discussions for quite some time now. We've got a sister program, for example, called the Business Growth Program, which is aimed at startups. They've been proactively recruiting Black and Asian and ethnic minority founders for a good over 12 months now, and have kind of done a tremendous job there. We
and
just recently,
I guess it's really important how that program can support the international, but also the international opportunity just helps your broader understanding of internationalization. We are going to have to wrap up shortly, so I'm going to have to cut that a little bit short. But I want to ask everybody on the panel just one quick question. What is your one single bit of advice that you would give to a business that is thinking about going global or thinking about engaging with some of these programs? So I'm going to start off with Christos.
I think that obviously I'm passionate about exports, and I think we can have an exports-led recovery from COVID. Just last month there was a new report that said 6.5 million
to
jobs.
one line, Christos. We're gonna
one line.
we're coming
Sorry.
into time, so.
Yeah. So let's just choose one market and attempt to explore all the opportunities that are presented in.
That's great.
In
and Cameron,
so.
your one line for businesses who are thinking about going down this journey?
I think doing the research is really important. Each market has its nuances, and you probably don't know about them. So figure out what they are.
Right. And Deval?
Unashamedly hoover up as many connections and content from organizations like us as you possibly can.
Okay. And finally, Inga, your one bit of advice.
Yes. Well, digital is here to stay, but please visit in-person tech events for all your connections.
So thank you to all of our panelists today. It's been a great discussion. I think what that's really shown is the opportunities that are out there. It's been fascinating to hear about how businesses have tapped into those global markets during 2020 and the early parts of 21, but how there's a real drive and a real opportunities emerging, and also a huge amount of support that's available if you're thinking about going down that journey. So a final thank you from me to all of our panelists, and please do get in touch with the Growth Company, London and Partners, and other people on the panel to experience your own global scale-up journey and start that today. So thank you to everybody. Thanks for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.